Okay, we're live again.
Good. I just tried to refresh the questions here, and everything's like frozen up on this end now.
Oh, I think, Jared, I've cracked it. 100%.
He's cracked. Oh, look out. Now you've jinxed it for sure.
Yes. Okay. I've moved everyone else over. Sorry, everyone. But it's working so much better now. Just tell us the story, Jared.
Tell us a story. Sun's out today. It's not windy, and today instead of freezing, I'm even sweating a little bit now. So that's kind of nice. It's a story. Yeah. Ah! Everything just. I've got that sad face thing going on again here.
Yeah.
I've lost everything.
Okay. I knew it.
Does it like fall off the?
Yeah. Come on.
Think by questions as well.
I don't know. Any second. I'll give you some questions.
And what's the? Throw some at me.
What's your favourite tyre ever?
Favorite tyre ever? I mean, before Specialized, pretty much all anyone ever used and still does is the Maxxis Minion. So, that's kind of like a. I mean, there's a lot of good tyres out there now. A lot of good manufacturers. A lot I haven't even tried. So, but I mean, you probably can't go past the Maxxis Minion as far as like an all-time. I mean, I remember being here at Sea Otter. The first time I was ever here at Sea Otter was 2003, and I was running a Minion then, and it's still the tyre of choice for people. So you'd have to be pretty crazy to say that isn't the tyre of all time, at least to this very day. So of course you got to say that one. It's all time.
It's right on your phone.
Oh,
on my
yep.
phone.
So I got none of the pink bike questions are coming up here.
Yeah.
Just hang on. I'm just gonna. You getting text messages?
Am I?
Nothing bad.
What are some of your long-term goals? When will you retire, and do you have plans to stay in the industry?
Are we on? We're definitely on.
Yeah.
The internet's like it's thinking over here. It's not on. At least on this end.
No, that's just that computer.
Okay. So
Explain
plans.
we're in a field.
Beyond riding, like, I mean, I just really enjoy it now. Like, I still am just as motivated for results as ever, especially after a couple of like very up and down seasons. There's been enough ups to let me know that I can still do it. Motivation's still there, and especially now with sort of a few bad seasons overall, makes you more motivated for it. So who knows? I just sort of take it year by year at the moment, but definitely like bikes. All my life have been my life. It's what I'm passionate about. It's what I love. So I definitely want to stay in the industry and I think I have a lot to offer as far as, I'm a pretty technical person when it comes to product and picking products apart, seeing what's good about a product, what's bad. I do a lot of that with sponsors, like just feedback to try and, that's what we're here for. Like a big part of it is just trying to make better products for you guys. So obviously we're looking for every advantage we can get with racing, and that's where that helps the consumer, just as that has that trickle down effect. So I think I've got a pretty good eye for that, and I want to go more into that field when the racing days are over. That said, I don't think I could just like cold turkey retire. And it's cool now because you see a lot of guys going into sort of like ambassador roles, still do some races here and there. Pick and choose the events you can do well at and get some results and exposure for your sponsors. Sorry, I'm just scratching poison oak. But at the moment, I'm still totally focused on just full race seasons. I'm super motivated and just need some luck apparently. So we'll see. But it's I think it's the way I've always taken. I was even 10 years ago. I never really thought, as far as my racing career went, it doesn't do you any good to think like years and years in advance, because every time I had like a what do I want to do 5 years from now type moment, you might have that thought and think about it a bit, and then you guarantee 5 years later all these things have happened that has thrown you in a slightly different direction. Like you can't make a long-term plan. I think the sport's still at that point where it's evolving and developing so quickly that you sort of got to go with it. You got to like be open to a lot of new things and just try everything and work out what you want, what you enjoy, and what keeps you motivated, and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I've got any questions?
That's exciting.
Please give us some insight how you pick your bikes. Stumpy versus Enduro 2.9 versus 27.5, medium versus large, so on. I always wondered why Curtis sticks to the Enduro and you prefer the Stumpy. Well, I sort of answered that before. I was riding with Bryn Atkinson back at home in like Christmas time, and he brought up a really good point that I hadn't really thought of, but 100% agree with. That I think the smaller bikes, if you're not concerned about racing, if you're just wanting to have pure fun, I think as far as the sizing on the bikes I'm on now goes, I think I would drop back to a medium if I was just playing around with my buddies, just the maneuverability and all that sort of stuff. But that said, when it gets fast and sketchy, when you're really pushing it, there's a lot to be said for a bigger bike that allows you to move the bike around your body more and just having a wider base of support. So every time I've tested, the large bike has been faster and just as fun, I guess. But there's definitely something about a small, nimble bike that is pretty fun. So I think Brendan brought up a really good point with me that day. He rides a size down. I think he's on all of the medium Norcos. So the fun he's having shows in his videos. He does some pretty cool stuff on Instagram and all that. So. I think if you're just having a good time with your buddies, then maybe a smaller bike's for you. So if speed's your thing, maybe a bigger bike. You just got to test it out yourself and figure it out. So, some long questions here. Hang on. I'm going to get away from sizing for a little bit. I just got to answer this one. Is there any truth to the rumours that you're all foreskin and barely any shaft? It's a good one, because if you spent a day on a hot day at an EWS in a chamois, there's a lot of foreskin there, so not much shaft. So I'll say there's a lot of truth to that rumour on certain days. That's the key point. Got to have a little bit of fun with it.
Someone's asked, Tiago has asked if they can race Enduro on a 20mm travel bike.
If they can race whatever you want to race. No one's stopping you from racing a complete rigid, but whether you're going to be fast on that 20mm travel bike, that's another story. But if that's your thing, if that's what floats your boat, then go for it. Personally, I think I understand like people who live in muddy places wanting to ride rigids and hardtails and that sort of thing just because they don't want to deal with bike maintenance. But where I'm from, very dry, very dusty. We call someone who rides a hardtail by choice a fun hater. So that's my opinion on that too. But I understand if you want to ride a hardtail, if that's sort of bike maintenance is a thing. So
Okay. Kirk has asked, in training, do you think the gym should take precedence over time on the bike? I am in a training system right now that is heavily focused in the gym, and I have some doubts.
yeah, I'll say that if someone's got you riding a little less than you'd like to and more time in the gym, I think if you had to choose one thing, time on the bike, hands down, is the winner. I mean, gym's like the icing on the cake. So that's what training in general is like. Going out doing intervals, doing road rides, doing gym, cross training, whatever. That's always the icing on the cake, you know. Because if you just do the one thing all the time, you're gonna mentally burn out. If you're not excited to ride your bike, you're not gonna really push yourself. You're not gonna get the most out of it. So, not to mention just using the same muscle groups like day after day after day. You're just gonna wear yourself into a hole. So that's where things like gym come into play. Getting out on the road bike, going for a run, going for a hike, just whatever. But sometimes you just got to mix it up. So I think heavily focused gym training regime is not the way to go. But that's my opinion again.
Okay, we're back in. Who was your first sponsor? How did you get it?
First sponsor was a team, a Southeast Queensland team called TGR. Bill Van Haren was sort of the guy behind that sponsorship, and he helped me out a lot in the early days. That was actually, I was racing cross country at the time when I was a junior. So he was the first guy to like give me a bike and pay for some travel expenses, all that sort of stuff. I think I was 15 or 16 at the time. From there, I sort of had a bit of a training burnout because that's just how I've always been. I'm all in, and basically I was the last guy in high school to hit puberty. Like, we're talking the last guy by months. And I guess that's where I kind of learned to be a bit of a smart ass because I had to use my mouth more than my size to get out of trouble or into trouble. And so I was all in, and then I hit puberty all at once, boom. Trying to still ride like 12, 15 hours a week as a 16-year-old, and plus the growing, the body just had a full meltdown, like a lot going on, just chronic fatigue-like symptoms. And then that's what sort of, I always had that BMX background, so then it was kind of just like a sort of bit of a transition into downhill then, because I couldn't train. I wanted to keep riding, but I was just riding for fun. But I couldn't like do any real physical stuff. So anyway, from there, Rob Eva, who still is heavily involved with SRAM, ran the GT Australia team, and that was my first downhill team. He had a lot to do with getting me help overseas when I first went to the US to race Norbers as well, so I owe a lot to Rob. He was awesome. He's helped out a ton of riders. He was the guy that got like Renier, Stark, Kavarik, all those guys. He helped out a ton with them, so he was sort of the guy to know in Australia at the time. And I guess I came to some national downhill rounds as a complete unknown, as just some guy who the year before was racing cross country as a junior, and then I was getting podiums straight away at national downhill rounds in elite, so sort of caught his eye and got my start from there. So they're the two main guys that helped me out early on.
Okay, you got ping bike now?
Yep.
Not a bad question at the top.
Pierre Von Oz, he says, do you think the shift back to 130, 140 mil trail bikes by some races shows that enduro bikes are going a tad too far in terms of long, low, slack? Or is it more of a 29, 27.5 difference? Depends on what you mean by trail bike. I guess the average trail bike has always been that 130, 140 mil mark. You're talking long, low, slack. The guys that specialise, like Brad Benedict mentions, like things have to almost go too far before people figure out that this isn't good. And I think we're getting to that point now where things are possibly getting a bit extreme, and maybe they're going to settle out or come back. We'll see. Only time will tell. Like, I've been proven wrong before with my theories on stuff like that. So, but as far as like the long low slack, like, and the one comment that kind of bugs me is guys saying when trail bikes get too slack that people can't climb them. Like, that is the worst theory, because I've ridden bikes that have 63, 64 degree head angles. My very first Yeti SB66, when I was doing the Downhill World Cups in 2012, I put the angle set in it at the full 1.5 degree and that big fork, and I think I had that thing at like a 63 degree head angle. And it felt so weird the first time I rode it, and like on the climbs, I mean. But I wanted it like my downhill bike, so it wasn't such a jump to go back and forth. And 2 rides, and it climbed completely normal. We're talking like steep, technical, tight climbs. You just have to adapt. You have to get used to it and change your technique a little bit. And you don't even have to think about it. It just happens. You just get used to something. So when I see XC guys who refuse to run anything slacker than a 69 degree head angle, I say I have a very strong opinion, at least, that they need to just try and give it a good go. Something in the sort of you see a lot of XC bikes now in that sort of 67 range, 68. So I think they, and of course, and again, adapting with the times. Like, I don't think cross country has really caught up as far as bike geometries go with how the World Cup XC courses have evolved. So I watch a lot of the World Cup XCs, and there's some pretty legit stuff in the courses these days, and I think some companies are really on top of that, and it shows in some of their riders' results. So I think some companies just need to evolve a bit more. So there's that. What are the major differences between the cultures of people at Yeti and Specialized? Honestly, the first thing, you hear all the stories about Specialized, so corporate, they're this, they're that, they're serious. And I remember when I first went to Morgan Hill in 2015 at the end of the year, one of the first things I saw was a guy lobbing a water bomb across multiple cubicles at another guy and hitting him, basically. And it's a fun environment there. Everyone is still, like, they're getting their work done, but they're really passionate about bikes, and that shows. And that's where they're actually a lot more similar companies, the two of them, than people would think. They're both companies where they only hire, and it's something that I could always see that about Specialized too. And I told Yeti years and years ago that Specialized was a company I would ride for, that I'd like to ride for. So there's a lot of similarities there. Obviously, Yeti's a lot smaller. They have that sort of small family feel a lot more, I guess. And it sort of is a sort of company at Yeti where the whole program and the whole company's based around making race bikes, pretty much. So you go in there to the factory and everyone knows everyone. You know everyone, but it's sort of the same thing at Specialized, just on a much larger scale. There's obviously a lot of people there doing certain jobs that maybe don't follow racing so closely, but as far as the people we deal with, like, if you're not really passionate about what you do, you're not going to last long there with them. So it's the two companies are pretty similar in a lot of ways, a lot more ways than people would think. So anyway, we'll leave some of the ensuing questions behind, because I just am not qualified to answer that. Training question: when do you start base training for your season, and how long? What kind of training do you practice during race season? Base, definitely. I mean, I love nothing more at the end of the season to put the mountain bike away for a while. I definitely have a bit of time off, like completely off the bike, but I love getting on the road bike, and road bike's mostly what I do. Definitely, like, I'd say probably December. Things start sort of going from, it's a slow build up from just like, I might go for a ride today and I'll ride until I'm over it and then I'll go home, that's what happens in sort of October, November. But by December it starts becoming slowly more structured, I guess. So if I had to name a date, it changes a little bit every year. It sort of goes more by feel, and then of course like when the first important race is. Like if the first important race is in early March, then you need to start in December. If the first important race isn't until May, then you'd be stupid to be training hard in December because you're still 5-6 months away from your first big race. So changed a little bit year to year, but if I had to name a date, I'd say early December. During race season, again, it depends on the races you're doing. If you're going race to race to race, a lot of the focus sometimes is just on recovery on, say, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday before sort of practice starts again on maybe the Thursday. So it depends, but and again, it changes every year depending on the calendar. Sometimes we'll have a mid-season 6 or 7 week break, and in that time you can go home, have 5 days or a week completely off, and then sort of build up over the next 5 weeks, pardon me, before the next race. So it all varies, but definitely, I guess, as a general thing, a lot more mountain bike specific things during the race season. A lot more downhill runs, shuttle runs, of course some long rides, but just a lot more time on the mountain bike. A lot more race specific, short hard intervals, long slow climbs, just race specific stuff really.
Drew has asked, his 11-year-old is going to do his first enduro race next month. Do you have any tips?
Drew, 11. That's pretty sick, dude. Good job. That's it'll be a lot of fun. But I think at 11, don't overthink anything. Just have fun with it. Just ride within yourself. Just you don't want to go out there and try and like go absolutely balls to the wall first stage of the day. Just have fun, man. Just pedal hard. Stay positive. If you crash, that's the best thing about enduro. You crash, it's not the end of the day. Just get up. Just keep going as best you can, and you just got to keep it fun. Whatever that means for you, like whether you're absolutely flat out and digging yourself a big hole every stage and just absolutely obliterating yourself, like for some people, like that's fun and do that. But if your goal is to have fun and just enjoy the day, then just start off with that. You're 11. You got a lot of years ahead of you, and you don't want to be burning yourself out just yet. So just keep it low key, keep it fun. This is a next door pit. This is a Troy Lee Designs technical issue right here. I definitely want to talk about this question. There's a few guys have asked it, so I'm going to throw out my opinion. Not everyone will agree with it, but it's my opinion. What would you change about the EWS? Do you think the one practice run is a fair format? There's a few things with EW, I love it. I absolutely love it. I've always said that enduro is what I would have been doing from when I was 18, if it was a thing then. So, but I guess there was a lot of things that went on the first couple of years of EWS. I think Chris Ball really nailed it at first. The days weren't too crazy long. There was just more fun factor. Like you're like, oh yeah, next stage that one's sick. Next stage, oh yeah, that one's sick. Like good all round sort of. You have to be more all round. Still you have to be amazingly fit and strong, mentally strong, technically. I think there's been a little bit too much emphasis on a lot of places just wanting to outdo the previous race with technicality, and to the point where stuff that people just wouldn't even ride it on a day-to-day basis. Like I understand it's the Premier Series, like it's the biggest race series, it has to test the riders, but it's gone maybe a little bit too far in the downhill-y direction. Nothing wrong with that. I love a good downhill stage, all that sort of stuff, but maybe a bit more of an all-round test, and also to make you think about bike setup now. Like these days, it's like we're putting downhill tires on. That's just how it is, because you need downhill tires, because it's gnarly, it's fast, it's rough. But if there was some more like sort of physicality to it, now again, not that they're not physical, it's like holding on through a rock garden for 10 minutes absolutely wears you to the bone, but it's not the same as pedaling. So if enduro is meant to be a test of the all-round best mountain biker, then I think it's missing the mark a little bit. A big fact with that I think proves my point is the fact that my race bikes feel like absolute shit in race setup anywhere else I go to ride. Like if I go to ride any place that people that 90% of the population ride on a daily basis, my bike feels like a downhill bike. So to me that shows that things have gone a little bit too far in that direction. Not to mention that also we see now purely downhillers coming to enduro and very, very extremely few cross-country riders trying their hand at enduro. So there's that. That's my opinion. The one-run practice format is sweet as long as it's fair for everyone. That's the thing. There's place where people go and ride beforehand. People might know the area, then it's not fair. So I know there's some concerns with some things we've heard about the French round coming up soon, that some guys already know the trails very well, and we get one run and you're meant to like compete with some of the guys who are already some of the best in the world, and you get one run. So if it was fair for anyone, but then I don't think the answer as well is making new trails all the time, because new trails tend to just get blown out and become just like ruined, and it ruins the people that have the races, put all this work into these new trails and they're not bedded in and they're just unrideable after the race. So I don't know, some will have a completely different opinion on that, but anyway. Any more on the YouTube side?
The classic at the top.
Clips or flats? There we go. That's a good one. It's an age-old question. I love to ride flats, play around on them in the off-season. Personally, for me, clips for racing. I feel like this wasn't even a thing, like until Sam Hill came to enduro. So, I mean, who isn't a Sam Hill fan? Like, I'm a big Sam Hill fan. And there was another question. I think I can't find it here on Pink Bike, the questions right now, but it was, could someone hold Sam's lines on clips? And I think it's not the thing that makes Sam's lines impressive are the fact that he sees them on the fly. Like, we get one run, you don't know, in one run you can't possibly learn every corner. The things he sees on the fly is, I think, his best strength in enduro. So that's a pretty rare skill. So you can definitely hold those lines on clips, because for me personally, when I decided years ago to make the switch for racing full time to clips, was the fact that if you're second nature on clips, if you've ridden them that much, like, you can ride clips like you do flats. Like, if you need to stick out your foot, you just stick out your foot. I do downhill runs at home where I ride the entire run unclipped, just so I'm comfortable riding flat out, say just with my shoe on on my heel on the pedal pretty much, so I'm not on the cleat area. So I know if I get in that situation when I can't get clipped back in, that I'm still comfortable to go through a rock garden not clipped in. So it's just a different technique, but the whole thing with Sam and flats isn't probably anything to do with him being on flats. It's just that his the things he sees and the lines he sees is what is impressive, and that's got nothing to do with his pedals. So anyway, what else have we got here? Oh, there it is right there. Sorry, I'm not going to get through them all. Apologies for that, but
Tacos or pizza?
Tacos or pizza? Well, I just had pizza, so pizza. I'm a pizza guy. If anyone who knows me really well knows that my one big weakness in the off season is a trip to Domino's. There's way too much Domino's pizza going down at home in the months of October and November. So Yeah. It's not the best race. It's not what it was 10, 15 years ago. It's a lot healthier. But it's pretty good. It's delicious. Give it a go. Australian Domino's. I tried American Domino's. Not that good.
TJ Walker has just asked, what was your favourite ever EWS race stage?
Favorite ever? I mean, I can't say no to the Whistler, top of the world, all the way down through to the village floor. It just got everything to it, but it's got everything to it, but not to the point where your entire body's blowing up. Like you can sort of, if you're going a bit hard, like in the middle, you can make a conscious effort to like, all right, I need to like chill out a bit, and like it like pacing's a massive thing on it. You can chill out. You feel like you're losing a bit of time, but then you sort of build back up towards the end again, and it's just like there's so many like. It's mentally hard to race. It's physically hard to race. There's tight, technical, awkward. There's flat out rough. There's pedaling. It's just the one stage. It's got an entire race in one stage. So I love that stage.
Do you keep track of your watts per kilo? And how important is that for enduro racing?
No, it's not important at all. I mean, I train religiously with power, but all the training is done based around like seeing where I was in the past and in a training diary, working out like what's worked, what maybe didn't work, and sort of more you like, I guess I train more with like 10-second power, 30-second power, up to minute power, up to 5-minute power. And if you're talking about power numbers, that's the thing. But as far as tracking watts per kilo, like I weigh 80 kilos, like I'm never gonna have a good watts per kilo sort of a number. So I'm definitely not gonna win any hill climb stages in the Tour de France anytime soon. So no would be the answer.
See that one from Toast? See the bottom?
Toast or 2AST?
I think it's Toast.
Why pro rider don't use elbow protection? That's actually a really good question too. Like, it makes sense, but no one does it, and we all land on elbows. I've broken elbows before, and then I get back on the bike, and I broke my elbow. It was years ago, but it was 15 weeks off the bike. The elbow doesn't heal very well. There's something about it, man. It just feels like restrictive when you're doing it, and it's a pretty bad one. I've got no real good excuse for it, but it's something that I think it's like a style thing, like every discipline, doesn't matter if it's cycling or some other sport, like they all have their look that everyone, I don't know, it's, when I really think about it, you're making me think about it now, and there's no good answer for that. It's dumb, but we all do it, and even though I sit here and say it's dumb, I'm not going to put elbow pads on tomorrow or the next day, so I'm sorry. That's good question though, good question.
Scroll down on that one.
Below that.
What advice can you give to young riders to be a champion?
Young riders, man, I say it like, it depends on how young we're talking, but with BMX, a massive thing was like, I'll never forget this one story. A parent came up to me, I have no idea what their kid's name was, and I can't remember now, but we'll just call him Little Johnny. What does little Johnny needs to do? He wants to be at the 2020 Olympics, and he's so good. He's national age champion. He's a step above his class. Like, he could be the next big thing. First of all, I was like, how old is he? He's 8. Little Johnny's 8, and I'm like, I've got no advice for your kid as an 8-year-old, because he's 8. When I was 8, all I wanted to do at BMX, like, I loved racing, but all I wanted to do was, like, hang out with my buddies in between races and eat lollies, eat hot chips. Like, racing was fun, but if you had a crap final, you're like, oh well, And that's why I'm still riding now, because, and my parents were awesome. Like, you see typical BMX parents, like, screaming at their kids, and my parents were like, oh well, you tried your best, next time. Always, that's how a parent needs to be, supportive, and never, like, you need to be like, Dad always pushed us, but I think looking back on it now, he knew when to back off as well. He wanted us to do well. he wanted to, like, we've always been a really sporty family, my brother, my dad, and he pushed us but didn't, you know, take it too far ever, and that's the key, is finding that balance, keeping it fun, and fun when you're young. I can't emphasize that enough. If you're not having fun, you're not going to last long in anything. So even now, like where I'm at now, if I wasn't having fun, I wouldn't be doing it. I'd go do something else. You could be making a lot more money doing things that don't involve risking your life on a bike and that sort of stuff. So I do it because it's fun. That's the number one reason. Always.
See the one just under Pink Bug's comment. That's a good question.
Do you wear a rubber wedding ring to prevent decluttering? I do wear the actually, there's a good story behind this ring, and this my mechanic last year, Kyle Hayes, he bought the Qualo, however you say it. They're like, it's the same thing. $30 he spent on it, $30 US. I'm like, that is ridiculous. It's a little ring of silicon. Like these things, like our wristband here to get in our pass with Sea Otter, they give you this when you enter. Like, what does this cost? Like 1 cent. And he paid $30 for one of these damn things. So I had a little contest with him, and I went and I bought a 10-pack of these for $8. So I've got wedding rings for the rest of my life. This thing's 2 years old. It looks brand new still. So, but they make sense because I've got a big, bulky titanium gold wedding ring, and it causes some blisters on your hand on a long day of riding, that's for sure. So they're good, but don't spend $30 on one. Even though I bought a 10-pack for $8, I still got ripped off. But anyway, so, but no, not because of degloving.
Some good ones, just keep going down from there. They're all gold.
TJ again. TJ is one of the guys behind On Track, for anyone who doesn't. It was the first thing outside of riding that I've ever been really nervous about on the day, and like just the only time in my life that it's felt like I don't have any kids or anything, so I'm sure that'll be right up there with it too. But the first day I was really like worked up, like you would be at like a massive race or something. So just the fact that I fooled a female into spending the rest of her life with me, that I'm pretty proud of that. Yeah, I got it good.
Next one.
Next one.
Who's it from?
BC Pov says, if you could wear a half lid on hot days when racing, would you? Well, it depends on. I'd only ever wear a half lid at home unless I'm shuttling, because you don't have to ride back to the top. So, but I guess your question's based around, or is it based around people wearing half shells at races for the climbs, putting them on their backpack for the descent? And the short answer to that is I hated that when I tried it. A helmet on my back, like slapping around, you couldn't stop it from slapping around, and I absolutely hated it. So no. But if I'm at home riding, all I ever wear is a half. If I have to climb to the top, I am religiously in the half shell. So yep. Just keep going down on these.
Do Chris Things question?
Sorry.
Chris Things. Yeah.
Oh, Chris Things. Jared, what is your training for cardio and question mark? Cardio, like, again, I guess it comes back to the question I answered just before. I spent a lot of time on the road bike, gym. I like to like really mix it up, because I guess that shows in my career with like, you know, downhill, cross country, BMX, full cross, enduro. I get bored doing one thing all the time, so my training involves a lot of different stuff. So road bike, even like in the gym, like I can't just do a gym session and lift weights like between every set. I'll be straight back onto the spin bike and try to get like a bit of a cardio session at the same time as recovering for the next set of weights or whatever. So, but then, especially during the race season, you can't beat specifics. Like specifics win every time. So that's why we go to Whistler, go to, you know, wherever to like just get those long runs in. If you can do long runs, do timed runs, push yourself, put the clock on, replicate a race in the race season, staying sharp in that area is the number one thing to do, hands down.
I think we missed it earlier on with all the technical difficulties, but there's one Pink Bike that said, that everyone enjoyed your bike setup notes and descriptions of the race, like the blogs afterwards.
Yeah,
Come back.
we answered that one at the start, but I think we got cut out a bit. The old bike check things and the race reports for a couple of years there with Yeti. It was something that I enjoyed doing it, and it was definitely good, and I could see the benefit in doing it. But it was something Yeti really kind of pushed on me. They wanted me to do it, and again, I liked doing it, but they always wanted it when it was relevant, like pretty much the night of the race, and you were just hammered and you just wanted to have a night to relax. So it always was like a bit of a chore for me to do, just because you're just knackered after a weekend of racing and all that. So but they were really good, and you're right, I probably should start doing them again. But when they sort of stopped pushing it, then they just kind of fizzled out, I guess. So, but they did always get a really good response, and probably something worth doing again. So,
were you surprised by the one you did from 2014, Whistler? That was really popular. Were you surprised at how?
Yeah, oh man, that race was. I still think about that race a lot, just because it was like, I mean, I was going up to stage 2, I think, because I lost. I knew something was majorly wrong with my fork a minute in. I hit this one part of, was it microclimate stage 1, and I thought it was like a gentle roll in. I thought this big hit wasn't till a little further down, and I was like, no, I can no break this. So I just centered off it, and then just realized I was floating through the air and about to land on like a semi-uphill pile of rocks, and just head slapped, like my visor just about hit my front tire, and instantly blew air. It was a prototype fork that I'd been riding for a while. It was nothing was going wrong with it, but just that one big hit blew all this air from the positive chamber into the negative. So it basically meant the fork felt locked out until a big hit would blow it off, and it would basically just go straight to bottom out from there. So it was sketchy at best. Putting it kindly would be sketchy. But I was going up to stage 2, and I couldn't believe that's how the race had started. It's the second last race of the season. I was in the lead overall, and I'd won the year before, so I sort of saw it as my race to really try and cement the overall, I guess. I was like, this isn't happening, but I'd lost a ton of time on stage 1, and I didn't think I was going to even get through the rest of the day. And I remember sitting there halfway up the climb by myself. I was dead last, like as far as getting to the next stage. I was the last rider to start, so I was trying to figure out my fork at the bottom, and I was sitting there on the side of the ski field, and I'd started to ride down the hill and like just go back to the pits. I'd for about 5 seconds I had pulled out of the race, and then I just stopped myself and like, you can't just give up the whole season for one. You have to just keep trying. Even if you get 50th today, you get some points. Even if you crash because the fork's dangerous and you break a collarbone or something, at least you tried. You can't just pull out. So I did that. I put a CO2 in my fork, which made the not a full CO2, that would have exploded it, but just sort of went by feel enough so it wasn't bottoming out, but it was like riding a rigid off the top of the fork. So I was just like losing a bit of time all day. Stage 4, oh my god, stage 4 was what did we do? That was the bottom part of Ride Don't Slide into BC's, I think it was at Whistler. Anyone who's ridden that is hell. Like, it's not as bad as Top of the World into Ride Don't Slide like we did last year, but it's 8 or 9 minutes of just getting pounded, and I had the worst arm pump of my life. It was like riding a rigid down there. It was rattling my teeth out, and I got to the bottom. Another question asked me about a moment where I threw my bike into the bushes. I had a meltdown or something, and I pretty much did that. I was riding back to the pits after 4, and the last stage went absolutely perfect, and I pulled back all the time and won the race. So
2 seconds.
By 2 seconds, yeah, like exactly, like. So I try to think about that race a lot, like, because that was definitely the race I'm the most proud of, that I didn't give up. Basically, I couldn't. I was in a position where I couldn't give up, and not after 6 months of racing leading up to that race. So yeah, that was a good day in the end. A really good day.
just as you finished that, it's decided to boot us offline.
Well, oh, really?
Literally, you finished it, and then it went. Oh, hold on. I was actually there at the bottom of stage 1 when you were bouncing your fork.
Oh, really?
Fork's gone.
God. I knew something was wrong. I didn't figure it out until I was pushing on it and I could feel the bottom out bump.
I think we're back in. That was straight up internet. Nah. I think we're gonna have to call it. The internet's just completely stopped dead.
Gone.
Yeah.